Welcome to Starlight Sci-Fi, where we explore the vast unknown, unravel cosmic mysteries, and dive deep into the most thrilling science fiction stories. If you love sci-fi, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an adventure. Now, let's begin. For thousands of years, the Galactic Accord had maintained peace across the known universe. It was a grand alliance of civilizations, intelligent beings of all forms, from towering silicon-based entities to microscopic collectives of neural matter. War had been studied, categorized, and left behind as a dark relic of history. Conflict was considered primitive, a failure of logic and diplomacy. Then, humanity arrived. Compared to the ancient empires, they were insignificant. A young race barely touching the stars, their technology crude by galactic standards. Yet something about them unsettled the greater species. They expanded rapidly, adapted effortlessly, and survived encounters that should have destroyed them. Whispers of their tenacity spread through the high councils, reaching the scholars of Exelthari, a species that had devoted its existence to understanding the nature of intelligence. It was they who first posed the question, simple yet profound, what makes humans so deadly? At first, the suggestion was met with amusement. The Krell Dominion, a race of bioengineered warriors, scoffed at the thought of humans being considered dangerous. The Ruin parasites, capable of controlling the minds of entire species, dismissed them as mere biological anomalies. Even the Zindari, whose perception spanned multiple dimensions, saw no cause for concern. Yet, as the research began, the laughter faded. Historians compiled human records, analyzing their history, physiology, and psychology. What they found was disturbing. Unlike other species, humans had no single path to dominance. They thrived in chaos, evolved through hardship, and wielded destruction not as a last resort, but as an instrument of progress. Their wars were not just territorial struggles, but ideological battlegrounds, fought with an intensity that defied reason. Their technology, though primitive compared to the great empires, was designed not for stability, but for acceleration, forever advancing, never stagnating. More troubling was their ability to survive. In environments where others perished, humans adapted. They did not require genetic engineering or hive minds to overcome adversity. Their bodies healed, their minds adapted, and their will refused to break. The more the scholars uncovered, the more disturbing the truth became. No species had ever risen so quickly, fought so relentlessly, or survived so stubbornly. Their presence in the galaxy was not an accident. It was inevitable. What had begun as a casual inquiry had transformed into a terrifying realization. Humans were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most intelligent, but they were, beyond a doubt, the most dangerous. At first glance, humans were unimpressive. Their physiology was unremarkable compared to the many species that roamed the stars. The Krell possessed dense, armor-like hides that could withstand plasma fire. The Zinyari saw across dimensions, detecting threats before they materialized. The Tarvax, swift and six-limbed, could outrun nearly any predator. Humans, in comparison, were frail, easily wounded, painfully slow, and reliant on technology to survive the harshness of space. Yet despite these apparent weaknesses, they endured. When the scholars of Zelthari dissected the human condition, they found something deeply unsettling. Unlike most species, whose survival depended on specific environmental conditions, humans were adaptable to an extreme degree. They thrived in scorching deserts, freezing tundras, toxic swamps, and high-radiation wastelands. Worlds that would kill others in moments. Their bodies were living experiments in survival, capable of adjusting to new threats in ways no species should have been able to. The first shock came when their immune system was analyzed. Other species possessed predictable biological defenses, antibodies tailored to a specific range of threats, immune responses that followed strict evolutionary patterns. But human immunity was something else entirely. Their bodies did not just fight infections, they learned from them. Each disease, each pathogen became a stepping stone to greater resilience. Even poisons that would cripple most species often failed to kill a human outright. Their cells resisted, adapted, and in many cases overcame. Worse still was their endurance. Most species relied on bursts of strength, short-lived energy reserves, to escape danger or overpower threats. Humans functioned differently. Their muscles were not the strongest, but they were efficient. Their stamina was terrifying. In ancient times, they had hunted not with fangs or claws, but by simply outlasting their prey. They ran their enemies into exhaustion, kept moving when others collapsed, and survived when logic dictated they should not. Food and water, critical for all life, were yet another area where humans defied expectation. While most species had rigid dietary requirements, humans could consume an almost absurd variety of substances. What was toxic to others was often merely unpleasant to them. They metabolized different energy sources, adapted to scarcity, and could survive on scraps that no other species would consider nourishment. The more the scholars examined, the more it became clear humans were not just another sentient race. They were biological anomalies, creatures that nature itself seemed to have designed to endure the impossible. But the true horror was yet to be discovered. Physical resilience was only the beginning. What lay within their minds was far worse. Intelligence was not unique in the galaxy. Many species possessed vast mental capabilities. Some shared consciousness across entire star systems. Others processed time in nonlinear patterns, seeing past and future as a single event. The Extalthari scholars had catalogued thousands of civilizations, each boasting their own brand of brilliance. Yet human intelligence was different. It was ruthless. They refined what was safe and discarded what was dangerous. Humans, however, did the opposite. They did not simply learn, they experimented. Their history was a relentless pursuit of understanding, no matter the cost. If fire burned them, they harnessed it. If a substance was toxic, they studied its properties until they found a way to use it. If nature placed limits on them, they devised ways to break free. Unlike other species, which followed evolutionary templates, humans had no single defined path. Their intellect was shaped by desperation, hardship, and an insatiable hunger to dominate their environment. Their curiosity was not passive, it was a weapon. When faced with the unknown, they did not retreat. They pushed forward, even when it led to disaster. The greatest civilizations in the galaxy had all reached a point where they understood the dangers of unchecked knowledge. They placed restrictions on their technological advancements, avoided weapons too powerful to control, and carefully regulated their expansion. Humans did not. They discovered metalworking, and within a blink of evolutionary time, they were forging weapons of war. They unlocked the secrets of the atom, and almost immediately they used it to create destruction on a planetary scale. Every breakthrough led to another, spiraling forward at a pace no other species had ever matched. Their problem-solving was relentless. If they were outnumbered, they strategized. If they were outgunned, they innovated. If they were facing extinction, they adapted faster than nature itself. Their ability to turn disadvantages into strengths made them unpredictable, uncontrollable. And worst of all, their ambition knew no limits. Most civilizations reached a point of satisfaction, a state of balance where progress slowed and existence became stable. Humans had no such threshold. They were never content. Their hunger for knowledge, power, and expansion never ceased. To them, survival was not enough. They sought mastery over everything they encountered. What terrified the scholars most was not the depth of human intelligence, but its lack of restraint. They pursued power not just for necessity, but for the challenge of it. And when they set their sights on something, they did not stop until they conquered it. Warfare had long been studied and catalogued by the Galactic Accord. Across the ages, countless species had fought for dominance, some with claws and brute force, others with strategy and precision. Every known conflict followed patterns dictated by biology and necessity. Empires waged war until resources ran dry, until the cost outweighed the gain, or until peace became the only logical outcome. But humans fought differently. For most species, war was a means to an end: territory, survival, political control. For humans, war was something else entirely. They did not wage it as a last resort. They refined it, perfected it, turned it into an art form. Unlike other species, humans did not wait for war to come to them. They prepared for it long before the first battle began. Their civilizations poured endless resources into military strategy, weapons research, and psychological warfare. Even during peacetime, they studied combat, anticipating conflicts before they existed. They simulated wars before they were fought. They created strategies for enemies that had yet to emerge. And when war did come, they did not simply seek victory. They sought dominance. Their tactics were unlike anything the scholars had seen. Where others followed traditions of battle, humans adapted. No strategy was sacred, no rule absolute. They were unpredictable, shifting methods in real time, turning every disadvantage into an opportunity. If brute force failed, they used deception. If deception failed, they used endurance. If endurance failed, they turned war into something so costly, so devastating, that their enemies could no longer afford to fight. They were willing to sacrifice everything: land, lives, even their own moral codes, if it meant securing victory. Other species hesitated at the brink of annihilation. Humans pushed forward. If one battle was lost, they did not despair. They analyzed, recalculated, and struck again with newfound knowledge. Their weapons evolved at an alarming rate, from crude blades to firearms, from explosives to weapons capable of reshaping entire planets. Each step in their history showed an unsettling truth. Humans did not just seek superior weaponry, they sought the ultimate deterrent. Something so powerful that no enemy would dare challenge them. Yet it was not their machines that made them terrifying. Many species had built powerful weapons. Many had crafted fleets capable of planetary destruction. What made humans different was their will to use them. They did not flinch at impossible odds. They did not break when outmatched. If threatened, they retaliated with overwhelming force, ensuring that even in defeat their enemies paid a terrible price. And worst of all, they never truly lost. Even in the ashes of destruction, they found ways to rise again. The body could be broken, bones could shatter, muscles could tear, and organs could fail. The scholars of Zelthari had documented countless species that, despite their strength, succumbed when faced with enough suffering. Even the fiercest warriors had limits. Pain, exhaustion, and fear eventually overwhelmed them, but humans were different. Their greatest weapon was not their endurance, nor their intelligence, nor even their relentless warfare. It was their mindset, an unshakable force that defied all logic. No species had ever been so unwilling to accept defeat, so determined to continue fighting when all reason dictated surrender. Fear controlled most species. When faced with overwhelming danger, instinct demanded retreat. The natural response to suffering was to avoid it, to seek safety, to abandon a lost cause. Yet humans embraced hardship. Pain did not deter them, it sharpened them. The more they suffered, the stronger they became. It was not a single trait, but a collection of behaviors woven into their very nature. They had words for it: resilience, defiance, perseverance, grit. Other species collapsed under pressure. Humans thrived in it. Their history was not one of easy triumphs, but of endless struggle, of rising from the depths again and again. Every disaster that should have destroyed them became a lesson. Every tragedy only fed their hunger to push forward. Their minds adapted to war, loss, and devastation in ways the scholars could not comprehend. They did not simply endure suffering, they learned to weaponize it. Where others were paralyzed by despair, humans found purpose. When everything was taken from them, they fought with their bare hands. And if they had nothing left, they still refused to break. The galaxy had seen species that resisted occupation, that rebelled against oppression, that fought even when doomed, but none did so with the sheer, relentless tenacity of humans. They did not resist because they thought they could win. They resisted because they refused to submit. Their ability to hope, even in the face of annihilation, was perhaps the most terrifying trait of all. A defeated army should surrender. A ruined civilization should accept its fate. A dying world should perish quietly. But humans did not. Even on the brink of extinction, they searched for ways to fight back. If their bodies failed, they built machines. If their numbers dwindled, they changed their strategies. If everything was lost, they found another way. The scholars had studied many species, but never had they encountered one so utterly unwilling to be conquered. The human mind was not just unbreakable, it was unstoppable. A species could be measured not only by its strength, but by what it did when faced with complete ruin. Every civilization, no matter how advanced, had limits, points where survival became impossible, where the will to continue flickered and died. The Zeltari scholars had studied countless fallen empires, each telling the same story. When the end came, when everything collapsed, they faded into history. But humans were different. They did not fade. They did not accept destruction as inevitable. When faced with extinction, they did something no other species had mastered. They rebuilt. It was not simple survival. Many species endured disasters, clawing their way back from the brink. But humans did not just survive. They rose stronger. They turned catastrophe into fuel, transformed their own destruction into momentum. No matter how devastating the loss, they always found a way forward. Even when their cities were reduced to rubble, when their people were scattered, when all seemed lost, they refused to be erased. It was not stubbornness, it was something deeper, something woven into their nature. Other species had instinctual responses to crisis: fight, flee, or surrender. But humans had a fourth option: adapt and advance. A plague could wipe out millions, but they would study it, understand it, and use the knowledge to make themselves immune. A war could devastate their worlds, but from the ashes they would create weapons and strategies that ensured it would never happen again. A disaster that should have crippled them became the foundation for their next great leap. Their history was filled with cycles of destruction and rebirth. Time and time again they suffered losses so severe that any other species would have crumbled. Yet, every time, they returned stronger, more prepared, more determined, as if failure itself was nothing more than a stepping stone to something greater. The scholars of Zeltari had seen species with resilience before, but nothing compared to this. Humans did not simply endure hardship, they embraced it. It was not just an obstacle to overcome, but a challenge to conquer, a test that proved their worth. And there was one final, terrifying truth: there was no end to it. No matter how many times they were knocked down, no matter how many wars they fought, no matter how many disasters they faced, they never stopped. The fire within them did not flicker or fade, it grew. What made humans so deadly was not their weapons, their endurance, or their intelligence. It was that no matter what the universe threw at them, they always came back. The scholars of Zeltari had begun their study with curiosity, seeking to understand what made humans so dangerous. They had expected to find an anomaly, a quirk of evolution, a tactical advantage, something that could be cataloged and explained. Instead, they uncovered something terrifying. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the fastest, the most intelligent, or the most advanced. They were not invincible. They could be wounded, defeated, even driven to the brink of extinction. But they could not be erased. No matter how many times history tried to break them, they refused to stay broken. No matter how much was taken from them, they found a way to rebuild. Other species could survive hardship, but humans grew stronger because of it. War did not just test them, it refined them. Destruction did not just challenge them, it hardened them. Where others collapsed under suffering, humans used it as fuel. There was no threshold, no final limit where they would surrender. They would fight and adapt and endure forever. The realization struck the scholars like a silent storm. Every logical assumption about warfare, about survival, about the rise and fall of civilizations, it all crumbled in the face of this truth. Humans were not the apex predators of the galaxy because they were the most powerful. They were its inevitability. To fight them was to fight against time itself. A war against humans was never truly won, only delayed. Even if they lost a battle, even if their worlds were burned, even if their fleets were shattered, they would always return, stronger, smarter, deadlier. This was what made them the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever seen. Not their weapons, not their tactics, not even their resilience, but the simple, terrifying fact that they would never stop. The Zeltari scholars sat in stunned silence, their conclusions laid bare before them. What had started as an academic inquiry had become something far greater, a warning, a truth that no civilization in the galaxy could ignore. To challenge humanity was to invite an unending war. To provoke them was to create an enemy that would never cease to exist. And so, one by one, the great empires of the Galactic Accord reconsidered their stance on the young species from Earth. They did not fear humans because of what they had done. They feared them because of what they would one day become. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with fellow sci-fi fans. What do you think makes humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring the stars.